Hi, my name is Warren Owen, game designer for Kaiju Conquest, an epic sci-fi strategy board game of alien invasion and battles between giant monsters and mecha. I started this project in January of 2014 with the intent of making it based on a movie in 2013, but that wasn't going to work out, so I decided to make my own version. So I'm going to show you here in this video is an overview of the game for one full game turn. Let's get started. In this game there are two forces, the United Nations Reaction Force, UNRF, and the Kaiju forces, known as the Caesar. There are 6 phases in the game of turn of Kaiju Conquest. They are the World Event Phase, Resource Phase, Movement Phase, Battle Phase, Redeployment Phase, and the Control Phase. In the World Event Phase, both players roll 1d10 on their respective World Event charts, showing the Kaiju forces first. Also, the Kaiju player rolls on the chart for a number of portals deployed that game turn. It will be from 1 to 3 portals. There will be 1 target city card drawn for each portal, which the player can look at without revealing it to the UNRF player, and a portal token is placed on the target city card. Next, the Kaiju player will roll on the weather chart to determine movement modifier for that game turn for his forces. For the UNRF player, the world event is based on resources, natural disasters, and transfer of mecha. He'll roll on the world event chart first to determine the results during the resource phase, or the game turn itself. Then we'll roll on the weather chart to determine any movement modifiers for that game turn. In the resource phase, both players will simultaneously draw a number of resource cards. For the Kaiju player, it is based on the number of portals he receives, controlled zones, bases in play on the game board, and bonuses from command cards. The Kaiju player will draw 6 resource cards for each portal being deployed. There can only be 1 Titan deployed per portal. If there are more than 1 drawn, then the Kaiju player replaces that with a resource card with only military units. The other option is to exchange the extra Titan card for the Supreme Commander character, who will then be placed with the other units for deployment. Once all the units are chosen, the Kaiju player can choose to exchange 1 of each type of unit for a command unit. In this case, he chooses not to do so because he needs the fighting units for the first turn. Also on the first turn only, the Kaiju player gets to deploy the Sea Leviathan Titan with the first portal. It is the only Titan of that type in the game and a valuable resource for the Kaiju player. For the UNRF, on the first turn, he will automatically get 16 resource cards and get to use all the listed resources displayed on those cards except for the mecha, which were not available to be built large enough to engage the Titans until the second and subsequent turns. Any mecha cards drawn will be discarded and another resource card will replace each mecha card. This will be done until there are only resource cards showing military units. Once all the resource cards are sorted out, on the first turn only, the UNRF player will get every unit shown on the resource cards. He will place matching images of the units on the cards to ensure he has them all. Once that is done, he can then exchange any unit for a matching command unit. So army unit for an army command unit. There can only be 1 command unit per unit type on the game board. Command units give +1 to command and allow all units under its command in a zone to reroll any misses once. The UNRF player will then pile all like units together at the edge of the game board, adding 4 bases, as he will also get those on the first turn. The resource cards are then discarded and the mecha cards that were drawn were shuffled into the resource deck. This will allow the player to get those mecha cards later in the game. The UNRF player will then count the number of command units and bases in play and draw that many command cards from the command deck. He can also get extra command cards for having a command warrior and battle master mecha in play. Any command cards with reinforcements on them, the player can use them right away or save them for another game turn. When they use them, they are only allowed 1 unit per command card for reinforcement, regardless of the image showing on the card. Once that is done, then the cards will get put back into the discard pile. Once the resources are chosen, then the UNRF player will deploy his forces on the game board among the 16 city zones and any non-city or open sea zones. The player must place at least 1 base in Honolulu, Hawaii, 1 base on the East Pacific Coast, 1 base on the West Pacific Coast, and 1 sea base in an open sea zone. When placing the remainder of the military units, at least 1 Army or PIB Powered Infantry Brigade unit must be placed at least 8 of the city zones. The remaining units can be stacked in any way the UNRF player chooses. Once the regular units are placed, the UNRF player then places a garrison token on each of the unoccupied city and non-city zones. On second and subsequent game turns, both players will get resources based on number of zones controlled bases in play, and bonuses from command cards. The players will also get to draw a number of command cards. For the Kaiju player, it is based on a number of bases, command units, and titans in play. For the UNRF player, it is based on a number of bases, command units, and command mecha in play. In the movement phase, the Kaiju player always starts first and will deploy the portals he received for that game turn. He will also reveal what the target city is and place his portal and units in that zone. He can also move any units already on the game board to attack new zones. The UNRF player will then counter-move against the deployed Kaiju forces. Note that on the first game turn, it is considered a surprise attack from the Kaiju forces, so the UNRF will not get to counter-move units to support units being attacked, but will be able to use any command cards he has available for the battle phase. In the battle phase, once both players have moved all their forces, any forces on both sides that are in the same zone must battle for the contested zone. Each zone is resolved separately. The combat is conducted through the use of a command initiative system on a battle board. The battle board has 6 levels of command where the units in battle will be placed in their respective command space. Once all units are placed, the unit with the highest command attack first, and so on all the way down the battle board to the lowest command space that is occupied. If there are units with the same command, the battle is simultaneous. If any natural ones are rolled without modifiers, it means collateral damage to the city, and it takes 1 damage point each time. If a city takes equal to or more points than its damage value, it is considered destroyed for victory point purposes, and the UNRF player will lose as many VPs as the city had for damage value. Once one battle is resolved, another will take place in another zone. When attacking military units, they only take 1 to 2 hits to destroy, depending on the unit, and you only need to roll equal or higher than the defense rating on 1d10. When attacking bases, mecha, and titans, you must roll higher than the defense rating, and they can receive multiple damage by placing damage tokens on their character card. Once they received all of their wounds, then they are placed over to the wounded side with reduced stats and abilities and wounds. Once they've exceeded that, then they are destroyed. For command cards, you can use them at any time during a battle, usually 1 card per unit type per battle round. And you can use as many command cards as you like. Maximum command cards you're allowed in your hand is 10 at any one time. When a battle is complete in a zone, the winning forces will be placed back into the contested zone, which is now theirs for control and victory point purposes. The battles continue until all contested zones have been resolved and only one side or the other controls the zone. In the redeployment phase, starting with the Kaiju forces, the player is allowed to move any of his units on the game board from one friendly zone to another to give mutual support to his forces. The UNRF player will also get to do the same for his. In the control phase, both players will total the number of victory points earned by the number of zones controlled and opposing units destroyed. The total is then adjusted on the victory point tracker. The player who reaches 120 more points at the end of the game turn wins the game. Any ties, then the player with the most bases and zones controlled wins the game. If there's still a tie, then they will play another game turn until such time as one of them has more points than the other. After the control phase, the players will then place all their destroyed units back into the reserve piles, along with any mecha or titans that were destroyed, and get ready for the next game turn. That is a complete game turn of Kaiju Conquest. Hope you enjoyed it. So that is a general overview of Kaiju Conquest. This is a prototype. The board will be re-illustrated. Cards tokens will be adjusted a little bit between now and the Kickstarter plan for March 2015. Also, with the stretch goal, if possible, the mecha and Titan stands will be converted to miniatures. I will also be posting up another video for a full game from start to finish so you can see how that plays out. Stay tuned for that. Thank you.